for us to make peace and stop the fighting. One love, one unity, got to break the bondage. No more borders around me, no more mental slavery. But Marley said it best, stand together and feel alright. But if we fight, let it be for justice. And if we war, let it be for justice. At all costs, let it be for justice. Do what is right, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Inequity, disparities, and violence, oppression, racism. No, I won't be silent. No more barriers for we. We will thrive, prosperity. Marcus Garvey said it best. None but ourselves can free your minds. But if we fight, let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. We the people are from royalty. Royalty. I wish so many of us can see. Keep the culture, be united, stop the violence. Put the power in ourselves, create the franchise. In the news last week, another bomb overseas. I'm so sick of these murders in the streets. But if we fight, let it be for justice. And if we war,
hold on.
be for justice. At all costs, let it be for justice. Do what is right, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice.
Greetings and salutations, one and all.
No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice.
Y'all know whenever I start with this song, it's up. Something is up, right? The sound of Miss China Nicole kicking things off.
To make peace and stop the fighting. One love, one unity, got to break the bond.
I want to say big ups to each and everyone locked in right now. Those on tune in radio. On the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew. Big ups to you, welcome.
Marley said it best, stand together and feel alright.
Much love to those hailing from across the pond. Top of the morning to you guys over there in the UK. One Harmony Radio. Much love, King Genius. I want to say big ups to those who are locked in out to New Jersey. I know to New Jersey's finest, the motivator. D-Nice, big up your status. Those locked in on NIE Radio. Much love to you.
Inequity, disparities, and violence. Oppression.
Big ups to those who are locked in out to New York. Exhibiting the power of music on island worldwide. Home of this lady here that you're hearing in the background, China Nicole. Big ups to the Jump Out production crew. Much love, Gary. Those locked in out of Long Island, New York. On Reggae Pulse Radio. With DJ Atomic Force, much love to you. Big ups and bless up.
Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice.
Those locked in on the Foundation Radio Network, ClintonLindsay.com.
Let it be for justice.
Blessings, blessings, blessings. Mr. Lindsay.
Royalty.
Much love, sir.
I wish so many of us can see. Keep the culture, be united, stop the violence. Put the power in ourselves, create the franchise.
Those on PEMGTV.com.
Overseas, I'm so
blessings to you.
in the streets.
Big ups to the family out of Texas.
But if we fight, let it be for justice. And if we war, let it be for justice.
I want to say a big thanks to my segment sponsors. Paul C Media Group and Being in the Moment is priceless. Go ahead and give them a call. They take care of your videos, your photos, your streaming, your ads, and much more.
To make peace and stop the fighting.
Looking for somewhere to host your website?
Got to break.
They host mine.
No more borders around me. No more mental.
They do everything you see here on kevinstew.com and more.
Together and feel alright. But if we fight,
the stream that you're watching right now on kevinstew.com, they provided that. So you have an event, you want to stream live, a wedding, a church service, a graduation, a seminar, a party, you name it. Give them a call, 754-999-1140.
let it be for justice. Let it be for
Tell them what you want to do
what it costs. Let it be for justice.
and let them know Kevin Stewart sent you.
Inequity, disparities, and violence.
At 7754, sorry, 999-1140.
No more barriers for we will thrive, prosperity.
Thank you, Pulse.
Marcus Garvey stated best, none but ourselves can free.
I want to say thank you to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands. Althea is a licensed massage therapist operating out of Broad County, North Miami-Dade and South Palm Beach County. She comes to you, bringing her table, her oils, and over 20 years massage therapy experience. Go ahead and give her a call today, 954-655-9000. That's 954-655-9000. Call her up, set up your appointment today.
Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice.
She's also a vet.
Let it be for justice.
No, not an animal doctor.
We the
An army vet.
from
She is an army veteran
royalty. I wish so many of us can
of the United States Army.
keep the culture, be united, stop the violence. Put the power in ourselves, create the franchise. In the news,
So if you want a veteran and you like supporting veterans,
these murder.
give her a call. 954-655-9000. Schedule your appointment and your massage today. She is also certified as a personal trainer, so use up those services, yeah?
Let it be for justice.
I want to say thank you to Reggae Global Entertainment. Reggae Global act as your booking agents, handle your tour management, take care of your business registration, legal service referrals, music production, marketing and promotion, and much, much more.
Peace and stop the fighting. One love, one
Go ahead and give them a call today.
to break the
954-804-8199.
borders around me. No more mental slavery.
Or check them out online.
Marless
ReggaeGlobal.com.
and feel alright. But if we fight,
Thank you, Reggae Global.
let it be for justice. And if we war, let it be for justice. At all costs,
Big thank you to McNeil Trucking.
be for justice. Do what is right.
McNeil Trucking is a veteran-owned, licensed, insured mover in the states of Florida.
Let it be for justice.
So you're gonna move from the Keys to Jacksonville,
For justice, no matter what it costs.
from Naples to Cocoa Beach,
Be for justice. Inequity, disparity.
from Pompano to Pensacola, and all points in between. You want to put some things in storage and you don't have the manpower, you don't have the transportation? Don't worry. You have the name, you have the number. McNeil Trucking. 954-406-9740. Call them up today. Tell them Kevin Stew sent you. Because with McNeil Trucking, your goods are in good hands. Like I always say, this song right here is my theme song when I'm addressing certain things. But before we get into addressing those things, quick community PSA. Coming up on the 17th of December,
From royalty,
feeding the homeless.
I wish so many of us can see.
It happens downtown Broward.
Put the power in ourselves, create the
from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Last week another bomb
Eastern time.
Sick of these murders in the streets.
It is recommended that you wear your mask to this event. That's the only dress requirement. So if you want to wear a suit, that's up to you. If you want to wear shorts and t-shirt, that's fine. Whatever else you want to wear, you wear. But please wear your mask.
To make peace and stop the fighting.
If you want to donate,
one love, one unity.
On Venmo, you can look up Marlon Dixon. That's Marlon-Dixon. MARLON-DIXON.
But Marley said
on Cash App,
together and feed
$Heavy Dino. That's Heavy, HEAVYDINHO 1976. On Zelle, on PayPal, look up MGA Dixon 23 at hotmail.com.
Let it be for justice, no matter what it costs. Let it be for justice. Let.
And you can contact me for the Wells Fargo account and the Truist account that you can donate to.
Oppression, racism, no, I won't be silent. No more barriers for we will thrive.
Also, you're encouraged to get your copy of the book, the audiobook, narrated by yours truly, Kevin Steele. Authored by Jonathan Field. This is called Empowered: Essential Concepts and Strategies Every Woman Should Know About Self-Defense. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Audible. A quick way to get it though, go to kevinstew.com. There's a copy of the book cover. Just click on it and it takes you right where you need to be. Empowered: Essential Concepts and Strategies Every Woman Should Know About Self-Defense by Jonathan Field, narrated by yours truly, Kevin Stew.
Let it be for justice. We people are from royalty.
We the people.
With so many of us can see.
We're from royalty and much more.
Stop the violence.
Various parts of the United States and the world.
In the news last week, another bomb overseas. I'm so sick of these murders in.
But we got news today of things happening in the Lone Star State. And we have a guy living inside the Lone Star State that gives us a little bit of insight as to some of the things going on there. And this journey started back in 2019 that we're on today, looking at just one case, just one little case that I brought him on to look at. And we have gone so far and so deep into this thing called a judicial rabbit hole that I don't know when it is that we'll ever get out. And he probably can't ever get out. He just needs to make his bed down there in that rabbit hole. So, no stranger to the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the one and only Mr. David Botinsky. Yeah, he's still Botinsky. David Botinsky Fisher. Much love, much love. Welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. The first and probably only time I've ever been referred to as a bunny. And I'm getting some feedback a little bit, Kevin.
Feedback. Let me see. All right.
A little echo. Let me see. It's gone now.
Okay. All right.
So, good evening.
Welcome to the night shift once again. One of these days, I'm not gonna even welcome you anymore because, you know,
I'm not welcome in a lot of places in this state. So, hey.
And you live there.
And I live here. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So,
probably begrudgingly to a lot of people, but.
Tonight we're looking at what I titled some more of the Lone Star Stink. I did title tonight's broadcast the Lone Star Stink, and if you want to participate in tonight's broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, those of you listening in, big ups to those on Facebook Live, those on Clubhouse, those on Zeno FM, and of course the home of the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew, kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment. Welcome to the broadcast. You can participate by way of jumping into the stew pot. Others call it a chat room, but because we're fancy over here on kevinstew.com, it's the stew pot. You just go to kevinstew.com. You don't need to register, offer a firstborn, an internal organ, or a blood sacrifice. Just go to kevinstew.com and you are there. You can remain anonymous if you choose, as many have, or you can put a name that I can refer to you as. Up to you. We just ask that you keep things respectful. Okay, that's the only real requirement. And, of course, the phone line is open. You can use up the phone line, 773-789-STEW. That's 773-789-7839. You can call, text, WhatsApp, Telegram. We encourage you to call. We really do. So you can be a part of this broadcast. But go ahead and text. Go ahead and jump into the stew pot. Go ahead and take notes. Some of you might need to take notes so that you can follow along, because fish is going to take us some places, and you're going to need to connect the dots, as you have been taking us some places, David.
Yeah, oh, by the way, did you title this program The Long Star Stink?
The Lone Star Stink.
Oh, okay, and you made comments about my sense of humor.
I can do that.
yeah, you can.
You see, people don't hear.
Just have to be, innocent about this part of it.
Yeah, but people don't really hear some of your humor, right? I get to hear some of it.
Yeah, probably best kept that way. So yes, we're going to take a trail ride through the briars of the Texas criminal justice system.
Yes.
And this is all unfolding as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
This is pieces we've kind of hinted about.
Yes.
Over the last several months. That's all coming to a head.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened today is the Texas Secretary of State announced his resignation.
I should have I didn't have that sound effect. I don't have it anywhere. Bum, bum, bum. I needed it.
Well, if you have one of those little fart bladders you sit on, that would work too in this case. So, the Texas Secretary of State, I've been talking to various committees of the legislature and advising them this was coming for the last 2 months. And what kicked this into high gear was the Fort Worth Weekly news magazine did an article last Thursday pointing the finger at the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court, involved with an administrative judge being assigned by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Texas to politically profiled cases to deprive the defendants of their due process, honest judiciary, federal rights under the 14th Amendment. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And cases that it affects are the El Paso Walmart shooting case, where the district attorney was forced to resign and the governor accepted her resignation last Friday. Well, this is going to come up there. And it involves the same judge mentioned in the Fort Worth Weekly conspiring with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. It affects two of the cases that Court TV is covering live out of Texas right now.
Two?
Two. One, which we've discussed before, the Aaron Dean murder trial. That's the Fort Worth police officer charged with shooting Miss Jefferson.
Tatiana Jefferson, yeah?
Yes, through her back bedroom window.
Yes.
While she was babysitting her nephew.
Yes.
And the Texas Border Patrol agent, whose trial is going on in San Antonio, charged with murdering 4 women in his custody. In that one, the medical examiner from Laredo took the stand today and falsified her credentials.
Oh?
Oh, yes. And see, I have been dealing with her since 2011. Actually, before that, because she came out of El Paso. And after she left, the El Paso medical examiner they appointed, I had him removed in 2010 for doing exactly what she did today. Lying about her medical training and her board certifications. And any attorney, I'll be sending an email out later tonight to the defense attorney, because this is grounds for a mistrial.
So, all right. What's her name? This Emmy?
Corrine Stern.
So, Miss Stern falsified her credentials?
Right. Well, she's on the stand, and you can go back and pull up the court TV, and play. She testified just before lunch today. I mean, she credentialed herself just before the lunch break. And on the slide bar, on the time bar at the bottom of the live TV, her testimony would have begun about 54 minutes, into the day long,
recording. Yeah.
Right. And what she did is, when they asked her to credential herself, she gave when she went to, college and then to medical school, and then she said she did her pathology residency in Hawaii.
Okay.
And then she then went to the Armed Forces, did a tenure with the branch of the Armed Forces, where she did a fellowship in forensic medicine. Okay, that has nothing to do with forensic pathology. And then she stated that she did a surgical residency in Bexar County in San Antonio. Then she stated that she is board certified in forensic something or other, but not forensic pathology. You see, back in 2005, 6, and then again in 2011, I checked the American Board of Pathology's website on Ms. Stern, and did a little research and found out that she flunked her pathology board.
Oh.
And now, generally, about 90+% of the time, doctors who practice forensic pathology take their pathology and forensic pathology boards, at the same time. But if you pass your forensic pathology board, it's voided if you flunk your pathology board, because forensic pathology is a specialty of pathology. So if you can't pass pathology, which is the bigger residency, it's a 4-year residency program. forensic pathology is a 1-year program. And a large part of forensic pathology falls under, a pathology residency.
Gotcha.
So if you flunk your pathology residency, it doesn't matter if you pass your forensic pathology board, it's void. Because the American Board of Pathology will not certify you without first passing the pathology board. So now, as a forensic pathologist, you can't take the stand in a criminal case and hold yourself out as an expert if you have been found wanting by the certifying board. So if you take a pathology residency for 4 years and then a 1-year forensic pathology fellowship, if you never sit for the boards, you can represent yourself out as an expert in that field because that's the field you practice in.
Right.
But if you ever sit for certification by the certifying board and you flunk, you've got to disclose that at trial, because that is a Brady violation, because you know that you have been deemed wanting in that field, so you are not an expert in that field.
So, all right. Did she represent the defense or the prosecution?
No, for the state. She's a state witness.
All right. So, does the defense know this?
Not yet, but they will tonight when I send it. Took me a while today to track down the attorneys that are representing the defendant, and I'll send them an email that includes my records that I pulled on her, her board certifications.
Wow. Now, in as it relates to her presenting herself falsely, when they bring this up, if they bring this up, because we know defense teams have been known to ignore information.
Yeah.
If they bring this up, what does it mean for her?
Well, for her, it means the dominoes start falling backwards. That can go all the way back for her tenure as the chief medical examiner of El Paso and train wreck everything there. But see, but this is just one of the two problems. See, the same problem is going to affect the Jefferson trial that Court TV is covering. Now, the Jefferson trial has two problems. One, the judge who's presiding over the murder trial is illegally on the bench.
Really?
He has no authority on the bench. This is part of the story that the Fort Worth Weekly did that I sent you a copy on.
Yes.
Back on October 30th, involving the administrative judge who appoints judges to the bench. Well, he illegally appointed this judge who's presiding over the case to the bench. He had no authority to appoint him. And without that authority and that appointment, he can't take the bench. The judge who was originally assigned to the case, his name is Judge Gallagher, was removed by a defense motion of recusal back in May, June of this year. The presiding judge of the region appointed a retired appellate court judge to hear the recusal motion, and that appellate court judge removed the original Judge Hagerman.
Okay.
And then the presiding judge appointed Gallagher. Well, here's the problem. The visiting appellate court judge didn't take the oath of office for that appointment to hear that motion to recuse, which means she was illegally on the bench, and her rulings are an absolute void nullity. And since she can't remove the elected judge because she didn't take her oaths, the presiding judge under our Constitution is forbidden to appoint anybody because there's no vacancy.
But yet
because
still
the
here,
elected judge is still on the bench.
But here we are with this judge.
Yeah, Texas doesn't care. And see, this is exactly the same thing that's blowing up in El Paso, where the judge involved in the second article that came out last week of being, working with the chief judge of the Supreme Court to defraud defendants.
Yes.
Well, he was assigned to the El Paso case where the DA, the district attorney, filed a motion to recuse the elected judge in the Walmart shooting case.
Mm-hmm.
This is where a shooter killed 23 people in a Walmart store and parking lot 2 years ago.
Right.
So the district attorney of El Paso filed a motion, she's a Democrat, filed a motion to remove the elected judge. The presiding judge of the region, again with no authority, appointed this Judge Sid Harrell to preside over the recusal motion, and Sid Harrell refused to recuse or remove the elected judge, which I could have told anybody he would not remove that judge because 2 years ago, the administrative judge of the region appointed that judge specifically to preside over this Walmart shooting case. He's not going to appoint a judge to remove the judge he specifically appointed to hear this case.
Right.
And since this judge, Sid Harrell, is also an administrative judge, under all the state's constitutions in the United States and the federal constitution, and this includes the Texas Constitution, administrative judges whose duty it is to appoint visiting judges whenever there's a problem in their multi-county jurisdiction,
Mm-hmm.
can never take the bench. It is absolutely a no-no. And all states recognize it. The federal government recognizes it, but the Texas courts have become so corrupt and such a stinky little game, and defense attorneys are afraid to challenge the judiciary that it's gotten out of hand. And so, as I guess the only referee in the state, I've called a foul.
So wait. And I ask this question over and over again, but for those that are new, I feel it's important to ask this question again. Two questions. One is, how long has this been going on? And two, why is no one raising this issue? Because as an attorney, as a defense attorney, if your case is going sideways, this is perfect for you to raise the issue to either get a new trial or to get the case thrown out.
Yeah, you would think it's that simple, but it's not in Texas. And for how long this is going on, it's been going on in 100% of the cases for more than 22 years. I've tracked it back 22 years. 100% of the cases in Texas. Now, the reason defense attorneys don't raise the issue is defense attorneys are under the authority of the State Bar of Texas.
Okay.
The chief administrative judge of the State Bar of Texas is the Texas Supreme Court judge. And if you challenge any of the judiciary over them illegally on the bench, they tell you straight out, if you do this, they will blackball you, and you'll never get another court-appointed case in Texas anywhere for the rest of your life. And there is no law firm that can stay in business without court-appointed cases. And that's how they control the defense bar. See, the judges in Texas have become so powerful and so corrupt that they can threaten down the legislature and the executive branch of government. They are omnipotent in Texas, and they went one step too far. And now the dominoes are falling. And see, the problem with the Secretary of State is the Secretary of State records the oaths of judges, district court judges and above. And I've caught about 6 times this year alone, the Secretary of State tampering with judges' oaths.
Come again?
The Secretary of State has been tampering with the oaths of the judges because all the judges, the state-level judges, have to file their oaths with the Secretary of State. And the judges have stopped filing the oaths, and so when somebody comes snooping, they manufacture oaths, and they got caught.
So wait. The Secretary of State that resigned today, and I'll put up on
John
the
Scott.
screen. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put up on the screen right now an article courtesy of U.S. News. Here it is. Top election official resigns after midterms. And that's dated today, December 5th. And here's the article. So anyone that is watching, you can go ahead and check out this article. Texas top elections official resigned Monday after an intense year of trying to reassure election skeptics. So it really talks about election stuff. It doesn't talk about.
Oh yes. This thing is just, and see, these articles that you're reading, and anybody can just do a Google News search, a Bing News search, and put in the name John Scott.
Yeah.
And you'll pull up all of the state articles about John Scott, the Secretary of State, resigning effective December 31st. Now, let's get into what is not reported.
Right.
Now, in the U.S. News, they report that John Scott, as Secretary of State, has been trying to reassure voters that the 2020 election was legitimate and legal.
Yes.
Okay, here's the problem with that. Earlier this year, the state bar filed an action against the First Assistant Attorney General of Texas for falsifying records in 2020 when he represented Trump in a lawsuit against Pennsylvania to overturn the 2020 election. You know, the thing that's still going on?
Right. Yeah.
What none of these news publications knew is John Scott was Trump's attorney, too, in that lawsuit against Pennsylvania to overturn the election.
They did mention it in this article. Secretary of State John Scott, who was appointed by Republican Governor Greg Abbott, came under immediate scrutiny from the moment he took the job in October 2021. He was briefly part of former President Donald Trump's legal team that challenged the result of the 2020 election, but said upon taking the job in Texas that he did not dispute that President Joe Biden was the winner.
Yes, but then he impaneled, being Trump's attorney and joining that lawsuit to overturn the election with this guy that's being prosecuted now. Then he set up a forensic review of two of the largest Democratic cities in the state on the election, Houston and Dallas. Who's going to trust him? And see, he's going to release that report of his forensic review the day he leaves office.
Oh, wow.
It's like lighting a stick of dynamite and throwing it in the room as you exit the room and lock the door.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Now, it gets better. See, in the state bar lawsuit against the First Assistant Attorney General over his actions representing Trump and filing false statements to the federal courts in Pennsylvania and that overturning the election that John Scott was part of,
Yes.
the Republican administrative judge for the region here in the Austin area appointed a sitting district court judge from one of the adjacent counties. He issued an order of assignment ordering that judge to preside to replace the judge in the county where the lawsuit is filed.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon and that judge, the visiting judge,
Yes.
then dismissed the lawsuit in September, claiming that the state bar can't bring actions against the first assistant attorney general because the state bar is part of the judiciary. Remember I told you that the chief judge of the Supreme Court is the chief officer of the state bar?
Yes.
And the attorney general is part of the executive branch. And Texas has a strict separation of powers constitution that forbids stepping over the line in 99.999% of the cases, not 100%. That's a difference. Now, there's more.
Tell us about the 0.001.
Yeah, that little 0.111% is a big damn deal. Now, the state bar's lawsuit against the first assistant attorney general Webster,
yes,
is suing him as a member of the state bar, not as a deputy attorney general.
Okay.
And so, well, if you're a member of the state bar, you're under the authority of the state bar, don't you think?
Yeah.
So there is no separation of powers issue. Now, a special court of review set up by our Supreme Court last July ruled that there is some toe-stepping under our separation of powers. For instance, a county judge over our commissioner's court has discretionary judicial powers. They can take the bench on probate cases and some misdemeanor cases, juvenile cases. Mm-hmm. But when they preside over the commissioner's court, they're part of the executive branch. So here you have an officer that's both part of the executive branch and the judicial branch at the same time.
This is a county judge.
And so what the special court of review said, yes, the judge who was cited by the Commission on Judicial Conduct was admonished, claimed that the commission had no authority over her because she never never donned the robes or ever took the bench as the county judge. She just stayed on the executive side, and as such, the judicial side can't touch her. Mm. Well, the special court of review set up by the Supreme Court, you know who set up the special court of review?
Who did?
Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Beginning to see how, yes. Now, these special judges that are appellate judges, 3 appellate judges, ruled that there is some toe-stepping because an officer straddles, both the judicial and the executive branches, then they can fall under the authority of both branches.
Okay. So
on a prosecution.
Okay, no escape.
Only on just these little tight issues. Well, a member of the state bar is part of the judicial branch. The state bar is a judicial branch.
Yeah.
But to be an attorney general or one of the deputy attorney generals, you have to be a member of the state bar, even though this is the executive branch of government. See how similar it is with the county judge?
Yes.
Ergo, the state bar has the authority to prosecute you under your involvement as a member of the state bar, regardless of whether you're, who you work for. Because that's not the issue. Now, but you see, I know visiting judges. And anytime I see a visiting judge, I know they haven't taken the oath.
Because when you check for the last 22 years, this has been the practice.
Yeah, it's 100%. So I immediately filed a public records request with our Secretary of State, John Scott's office, for the oaths for this judge going back 2 years. I filed that on September 21st. Now, under our records law, the Secretary of State has 10 days to provide those records to me or seek an extension of time. The Attorney General's office sought extensions of times for almost exactly 2 months. Pushing it out. I've only asked for 2.5 years. He can only have, 2 oaths. One when he was last elected. I filed it back to cover his last election, and his assignment or appointment to preside over this this lawsuit filed against the first assistant attorney general.
Right.
Well, on the day that the state bar prosecutors called me and tried to sell me that judges don't have to take the oaths anymore, which made me laugh myself silly for 2 hours. And finally, the state bar prosecutor kind of relented because look, you can't lie to me. The state's been trying to do this for 20 years. If you're going to lie to me, you better know more about the issue than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to do because I study my issues before I pick them up.
Right.
So the state bar relented, and they have filed notice of appeal to appeal that judge's ruling in dismissing their lawsuit. But about 2 hours after the state bar attorney relented that he wasn't going to convince me judges don't have to take the oath in this state,
Mm-hmm.
the Secretary of State sent me the oaths for this judge. No oaths. Not only did he not take the oath for his appointment to preside over this lawsuit that he dismissed, which he had no authority to dismiss because he had no authority on the bench, he didn't take a valid oath for his last election, which means for the last 2 years, sitting as a district court judge in a neighboring county, everything he's touched is dead and void.
Wait, you said he didn't take a valid oath?
Correct.
So he took an oath, but it wasn't valid?
We have 2 oaths that all elected and appointed officials have to take. The statement of officer, which is formerly known as the anti-bribery statement, where you have to swear under penalty of perjury that you didn't get this appointment, election, or position by bribe, hook, or crook.
Gotcha. Yes.
Under our Constitution, you have to execute that and file it with the Secretary of State or the recording officer for your oaths before you can take the oral or the written oath. You cannot take them on the same day. If you do, the oath is void. The statement of officer is valid, but the oath is void. And in Texas, if a judge doesn't take the oath, everything they touch is null and void. It's dead. To be a judge of this state, you have to first take the oath, period.
Mm-hmm.
And see, the Secretary of State is the gatekeeper for these oaths.
Right.
Now, what's the problem? Well, the problem is, if you're a corrupt judge and you know you're going to be asked to do things whenever the Supreme Court judge comes knocking, the last thing you want to do is file the anti-bribery statement, huh? Validly with the oath. Because that could put you in prison. So if you file the oath and the anti-bribery statement, you sign them the same day and record them the same day, the only person that's going to know you're in trouble is me in this state.
Well, you and the judges that know better.
Oh, yeah, the ones that know better, but hell, that's like being the store owner when the mafia comes knocking.
Right.
Yeah, all the mafia know they're shaking you down.
Right.
But other than you, who else knows? Or who else is going to say anything? Better put. Because it's the mafia. And that's what the Texas judiciary is. They're akin to the mafia. They run as a cabal. They all stick together, and there are no federal civil rights or state civil rights, any defendant in this state. Now, you may get due process, and you may get an honest judge, but there is absolutely no guarantee. And the more political you get, the less chance you ever have of getting a fair shake in this state.
Now, recently, there have been some news reports coming out talking about some of these judges. The Fort Worth Weekly has put out a few of these articles.
They've done about 11, 12 since April.
Yeah, I know I showed some.
On this issue.
I had shown some. I think last time we talked on this issue, I had shown some. And there are some more. There was one September 30th, which spoke about city in crisis and double dipping. Let me go ahead and put up that article.
I thought that was October 30th.
That was a September 31. Well, that
Okay.
was a date that was on it.
Oh, yeah, because that would have been October 1st when it actually came out, when it was
Yeah. So
printed. Yeah.
so that's this one that talks about a memo released by the Office of Court Administration and likely approved by Texas Justice Nathan Hecht
Hmm.
appears to be an attempt to clean up judicial messes left by money-hungry visiting retired judges,
Except
courtesy
for he lied.
Supreme.
Now, if you read that article closely, you're going to see it mentioning a Judge Gallagher who was involved in asking that this illegal judge who could never take the bench
Mm-hmm.
preside over his court cases in order to funnel money to that illegal judge. Judge Gallagher is the one who's sitting on the Jefferson murder case right now. Mm-hmm.
Which is why you said it comes back to affect one of these cases. And that case started today.
Yeah. Yes. Court TV is covering it live.
Yeah. Strong opening arguments by the defense, by the way.
Yeah. Now, here's the other thing. Now, in the court TV is covering two murder trials simultaneously in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
The Border Patrol agent, where the medical examiner just, committed perjury by giving false credentials.
Right.
Well, the medical examiner's income is an issue in the Jefferson case too, because the autopsy, the shooting was in 2019. The chief medical examiner of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, is under federal FBI criminal investigation, along with the commissioner's court, the county judge who appoints the medical examiner, the district attorney who didn't seek re-election this year because of the FBI investigation, in my understanding and belief, and the medical examiner who just fled the country to Dubai. Because as it turns out that this chief medical examiner of Fort Worth for 22 years was a Pakistani national in the country under a falsified green card. He was not a citizen, and you have to be a U.S. citizen to be a chief medical examiner in Texas, because a medical examiner's office in Texas is also a judicial office. And to be a judge, you have to be a U.S. citizen because you have to take the oath of office. How in God's name can a non-citizen take the oath of office? Oh, yeah, I swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States in Texas, so help me God.
Well, I guess they do it the very same way the judges do it.
Yeah, and the judges protect them. And see, this is exactly the issue. Big issue, the reason why the judges want a Republican-appointed DA, district attorney, to handle the Walmart case, because the El Paso medical examiner is a Mexican national in the country under a falsified HB1B visa J1 waiver.
So what difference would it be a Democratic DA and a Republican DA?
Because they don't want it coming out, because if the medical examiner is not a citizen, then the autopsies, all the evidence collected at the autopsy, the bullets, all of this are illegal. The death certificates are falsified state records. And without the medical examiner, I mean, what do you have in evidence to put before a jury? So they want a Republican who will cut a deal so there is no trial to keep this stuff hidden.
But if they don't want a trial, then this coming out takes care of that, because that throws the case out the window.
Well, yes, but see, that hasn't come out yet. See, they're doing everything to hide it. Now, I pulled the records. I warned the county I got the county attorney of El Paso to admit in 2014 that in an article with the El Paso Times, a big article, that the El Paso medical examiner is a judge. But she said, oh, but since medical examiners almost never don the robes and take the bench, it's okay that this non-citizen is the medical examiner because he'll never take the bench. Yeah, well, the special court of review that was set up by the Supreme Court that gave the ruling last year about there is some toe-stepping under separation of powers.
Yes.
Well, they issued the second part of their ruling on January 11th, 2022, where they pointed out anybody, elected or appointed, who has any judicial powers granted by the Constitution or by statute with the legislature is a judge whether they ever take the bench or not, and they're under the authority of the Commission on Judicial Conduct, which means you got to take the oath. And if you're a non-citizen, you can't take a valid oath. How can you swear to uphold the Constitution of the state of Texas when you're, when you can't be bound by the Constitution because you're not a citizen?
So, yeah, you keep that hidden, then you don't have to deal with that issue. So, keep that from
coming out. And so you
got
got me out there going, oh no, this is going to come out. And so, now, when they got through hook and crook, they've been prosecuting to remove the district attorney of El Paso until finally they had her in such a position that she went ahead and tendered her resignation last week, conditional on the governor accepting it. So I immediately called the governor's office, talked to one of his executive assistants, and pointed out the last thing Governor Abbott can afford to do, or should want to do, would be to accept the resignation of the El Paso district attorney, because she has all the powers and tools, statutory and constitutional, to get rid of this illegal petition to remove her, this legal judicial action to remove her.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the disaster that's about to befall the Walmart case, the last thing Abbott needs to do is to appoint a Republican judge into the middle of this.
Or Republican DA.
Yeah, a Republican DA. And I thought, the executive assistant understood the issue well enough to get it across to Abbott. Of course, I know Abbott, and the last person he's going to take advice from in this state?
That would be you.
You got it. And he didn't. So Friday, he accepted the DA's resignation. Now he has to appoint the new DA. Who is he going to appoint that's not going to blow up in his face? Because the FBI already knows about the medical examiner being in the country on a falsified visa.
But he's no longer in the country.
No, he is. He's still the medical examiner there.
Yeah, but didn't he leave the country?
No, that's the one from Fort Worth.
Oh, okay. That makes it up.
Who fled the country. See, we got 3 medical examiners in Texas that are non-citizens. The one in Austin is also a non-citizen. And that's an issue in a high-profile murder case that nobody sees coming yet.
Wait. Let me get this straight. 3 medical examiners in Texas currently are non-citizens. Mm-hmm. This is a position that you need to be a citizen because as a medical examiner in Texas, you're actually a judge and you have to take the oath of office. And to take the oath of office, you do need to be a citizen.
Right.
Okay. 3, not 1. 3 currently.
3. Well, the one who's fled the country, they've appointed a new medical examiner. Of course, they appointed him unconstitutionally, and now he's involved. He's the Fort Worth medical examiner. He's involved in trying to cover up an African-American who died in custody back in 2019, whose case is just now hitting the press. And the former medical examiner declared the death, a natural death due to sickle cell trait, which this African American didn't have. And see, that's blowing up right now in Fort Worth as well. So,
but even
when
so,
I told you that there's no justice in Texas, you're just getting a quick, broad brush of just how bad it is.
But Dave, even so, a sickle cell trait isn't one to kill you. Sickle cell disease is.
Yeah,
so carrying the trait is means nothing, really,
right.
Unless you get married, unless you have a child with someone else who's carrying the trait, and then your child would have a high chance of having sickle cell anemia. But just the trait, and people bought this?
Yes. Nobody questions the medical examiner because the attorneys representing the families are attorneys that are court-appointed to cases. Virtually all of the caseload of every attorney, criminal defense attorney in Texas, the majority of those cases are court-appointed. And if you PO a judge, he will call his buddies and they'll blackball you as a mass the next day. And you'll never get a court-appointed case again.
This is the second time tonight you're saying this, and you've said it in other broadcasts before. Is this information that you were told directly by attorneys, by defense attorneys in Texas?
I have to negotiate with the attorneys I consult for in murder cases as to how far the sitting judge will let them go before they get blackballed. They all tell me the same thing. Have been for 20 years. And you see this in the Rodney Reed case. When the Innocence Project, attorneys in Texas, part of the Innocence Project is appointed by the judges. And so when I alert them that the judge who's presiding over Rodney's case, in this case it was Doug Shaver, who signed the 2 execution warrants for Rodney, one in 2015 and the other one in 2019.
Yes.
Retired in 1999 and has never taken the oath of office for any of his appointments to any case, and there are multiple other death penalty cases, since 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And so I filed a state bar complaint, a complaint with the Commission on Judicial Conduct in 2015, roughly 10 days before Rodney was to be executed, to stop that execution order, because on a retired judge, when he's on the bench,
yes,
if the state bar, or the Commission on Judicial Conduct starts an investigation, all the orders of that judge get stayed until the investigation is concluded. So I filed it on a Friday, and the following Monday, the Court of Criminal Appeals halted the execution. And Tuesday, the next day, I got the letters that were mailed out Monday by the Commission on Judicial Conduct. It was the Commission on Judicial Conduct's investigation that stopped Rodney's first execution, not A&E TV's story about Dr. Bodden's casting doubt over the testimony by the former medical examiner, Travis County.
However, that wouldn't be put out in the news.
Oh, no, they would never be.
Then it raises other questions. The questions that we've been addressing for a little while now.
Right. It would overturn all of the hearings that Doug Shaver had done from 2014 to 2015, including denying Rodney DNA testing in December 2014. If he was illegally on the bench, he couldn't make that ruling. And then the commission, in their response to me, they tried to hide it, but I caught it. They said they didn't have authority over judicial candidates. Well, you see, since I know the oath issue, a judge is a candidate for an assignment to the bench as a retired judge,
mm-hmm.
and he remains a candidate until he takes the oath, because he can't become a judge until he takes the oath. So he continues to be the candidate until he takes the oath.
Right.
And so I realized, I see the game here. So when Shaver signed issued the second execution order for Rodney, and I think it was July July 2019. I knew they were playing me for a fool. They thought I would just simply file a new a new complaint with the Commission on Judicial Conduct to stay it, but it wouldn't work the second time because they've already told me he's not a judge. So they would let Rodney's execution go forward and then say, oh my God, we didn't realize that right after signing the execution order, Judge Shaver wrote a letter to the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court. Oh, that would be Nathan Heck, the same one now, telling Nathan Heck that he's getting old and he believes he's going to make a major mistake in a major case, even though he's still in excess health. Not excellent health, excess health.
Yeah.
Well, when he does that, Nathan Heck, as the chief judge over all retired judges and administrative judges, immediately removes his name from ever being named a judge again and notifies the comptroller's office that they can never pay this guy again as a judge.
Right.
He's barred from the bench for the rest of his life. But nobody tells anybody. They go, nobody's going to know this. Rodney's going to get executed on this void order by this judge who claims potential mental incompetency, and if it's ever discovered and people come back after the judge on a charge of murder, he says, well, look, I told the chief judge, I believe I'm becoming incompetent. Well, apparently I was. That was a game they set up, but you see, I was watching. And so I was monitoring on a regular basis the list of judges eligible to be assigned to the bench as a visiting judge. And Judge Shaver's name disappeared from the list. And I knew instantly that he either resigned or retired. So I filed a judicial records request, what's called a Rule 12 request, with the administrative judge that presided over this, Doug Shaver, asking for Shaver's resignation, retirement letter. Got it, and then turned it over to our local TV station, KXAN, who ran the story. And that's what killed Rodney's second execution. But there was another judge retired judge who was on the bench, who signed an execution order from a Texas inmate.
Larry Swearingen.
Larry Swearingen, and had him executed. And that retired judge is J.D. Langley, who was immediately, within 90 days, is assigned to Rodney's case. And like he did in Swearingen's case, and like Doug Shaver did, Langley didn't take the oath either, and still to this day hasn't taken the oath. And yet he presided over a 2-week evidentiary hearing in 2021 with Bryce Benjett and Barry Scheck, Barry Scheck in the Innocence Project.
Bryce wasn't there. He had left.
Yeah, Bryce quit. But you see, here's the deal. I notified Bryce in 2014 that Doug Shaver was on the bench without authority with no oaths, and told him he needed to file, a motion to remove the judge. He refused.
But
this
comes back to what you were saying.
Exactly.
Why they wouldn't, because it's their paycheck.
That's right. And so Bryce Benjett also represented Larry Swearingen. And the co-counsel in the Larry Swearingen case went to Bryce and said, hey, J.D. Langley hasn't taken the oath for this assignment. And Bryce told the judge, the other attorney, not to file anything, that it was a non-issue, and let Larry Swearingen get executed. Of course, it comes out later that Bryce has been offered the job of the head of the Queens County District Attorney's Public Integrity Unit.
Yes.
For $1 million a year, and so he had to clean up the 2 death penalty cases he had in Texas. So he was trying to get both his clients executed. Now, when Barry Scheck came down to handle the evidentiary hearing last year in Reed's case, I again warned Barry Scheck and all of his cohorts, all of the Innocence Project attorneys that showed up, that J.D. Langley was illegally on the bench. Did they do anything? No. They let him preside. Now,
You told all of them.
all of them. Emails. Got the email tracks, all of them. Barry Scheck, Butcher, all of them, including the Austin attorney.
You had sent me that email. You had
Yeah.
yeah.
I can send it to you again.
I remember
yeah.
seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't end there. Here in April of this year, a woman on death row from Brownsville was facing execution. You know
Yes.
who represented her?
The
Barry
innocence.
Scheck.
Mm.
And the medical examiner who did the autopsy in that case back in 2006 is the same forensic pathologist that Lisa Tanner put on the stand in Rodney's case last July. Norma Farley.
Mm. Yeah.
Norma Farley illegally did the autopsy in the Lucio case. Did he raise the issue? Nope. He was going to let Lucio get executed. Well, I've been talking to the legislature about this. See, a lot of members of the legislature, both Republicans and Democrats, signed letters to Abbott demanding that he commute the sentence to stop the execution. So the execution was stayed by the Court of Criminal Appeals. And then here, just about 2 months ago, the Innocence Project filed a motion to recuse the district court judge who's presiding over Lucio's case and assign the execution order.
Yes.
Well, the administrative judge appointed an elected judge from McAllen, from the next county over, to preside over the recusal motion. Well, you know me, visiting judge, pull the oaths. The judge didn't take the oath for the order of the assignment to preside over the hearing, and he filed void oaths in his last election, too. So he's not even a judge.
But
And
was
this stuff-
his assignment legal though?
Hmm?
Was he eligible to be assigned?
No,
So that-
because he's not even a judge. He's not a retired judge. He's not even a judge.
No, but even you said he was from the neighboring district, neighboring county.
Right. But you see, since he didn't take the oath for his re-election 2 years ago, without that oath, he's not a judge. He's just an attorney masquerading as a judge. He's illegally on the bench. Everything he does is void. And because he's not a judge, he can't receive an order of assignment from the administrative judge, because administrative judge appoints, judges, retired judges or active judges.
Okay, but all right. So how did he get on the bench if he didn't take?
Nobody verified to see if he took the oath.
Who is supposed to verify?
Well, the Secretary of State, for one, is supposed to make sure that the oaths are filed legitimately. And see, this is one of the issues I've raised to the legislature. See, I've been dealing with the legislative committees that cover this about the Secretary of State, John Scott, not acting as the gatekeeper for these oaths. You see, when a judge files, or any elected or appointed official files their oaths, since the Constitution forbids them filing the oath on the same day they file the anti-bribery statement,
Yes.
the Secretary of State is supposed to kick that oath back to the judge or the appointed official and say, you've got to redo this. You cannot, we warned you about this. There's a cover sheet that comes with those oaths that warns you. You may not take the oath of office or be administered the oath until your anti-bribery statement has been executed, signed, and recorded with the Secretary of State. You cannot submit these on the same day, sign the same day, because the oath would be void and invalid. And without the oath, you have no authority. But the Secretary of State's not doing it. And see, when I request the oaths, the Secretary of State has been sending me an anti-bribery statement, but no oath. Because the Secretary of State, John Scott, knows that if I see an oath and an anti-bribery statement signed the same day, both of them, and recorded by the Secretary of State the same day, then I'm going to make, a charge against that officer being illegally in that office because their oath is void. So he doesn't give them to me.
Do you know of anyone else that has requested oaths there in Texas and actually gotten a quick response or a response different from yours?
That's an interesting question, and it's likely to be in the press tomorrow. You see, in this lawsuit filed against the first Assistant Attorney General,
yes,
over his representing Trump and trying to overturn the elections, that visiting judge dismissed. Well, when I filed my public records request...
Wait. Assistant AG or Assistant DA?
Assistant Attorney General. The first assistant.
Okay.
Webster. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Well, when I told you that I then immediately filed a request with the Secretary of State for the oaths of this visiting judge who dismissed the lawsuit.
Yes.
And the Secretary of State kept putting me off every 10 days, saying they needed another 10 days for 2 months.
Right, yeah.
Well, I shared this with a reporter with one of the major newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got curious, and they filed their own records request for that judge's oaths.
Did you prompt them to do that?
No.
Okay.
But, after a while, and you see something, that the Attorney General or the Secretary of State continues to kick, answering the question week after week after week for months, and you're only asking for the oaths for 2 years.
Yes.
I mean, how difficult can that be? And so they got curious, so they filed their own. Well, last week I learned that they received their response, because I received my response 2 weeks ago today,
mm-hmm.
and the Secretary of State said absolutely no oaths, zero, no documents. Well, the reporter for this major paper got 2 anti-bribery statements. No oaths, but 2 anti-bribery statements. Now.
So wait. You got
nothing.
That was a response to you. There's nothing on file.
Yep, nothing. No oaths, no nothing for the period that I requested the oaths for.
That the reporter got 2
yes.
anti-bribery statements?
Yep, recorded by the Secretary of State. Now, that is absolute proof that the Secretary of State lied and falsified their response to me, which is a third-degree felony in Texas. Him stating in writing, his office, to me that there were no oaths for this judge, and that not being true is falsifying a state record. It's a third-degree felony.
Well, okay, so the anti-bribery statement
That's one of the reasons why Scott resigned, because he got caught. And you know what alerted him he got caught? Last week I filed a public records request with the Secretary of State with Scott's office, requesting that newspaper's public records request for this judge's oaths, and the response he gave that newspaper. So now he knows, son of a gun, I've got to produce the response I gave to the newspaper, which is going to, and he knows Fisher is going to use this to charge me with a third-degree felony, and he's right. That's why he resigned. That's why I told everybody last week, John Scott's getting ready to resign, because as soon as he sees that public records request, he knows the jig's up.
But, okay, so even if he resigns, you still requested records. So the office of the Secretary of State is still obligated to giving you records, correct?
Yeah, but you know what he's going to do? And I discussed this today, with the legislature. He's going to kick my records request until after he resigns before they produce.
But this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, though. Even after he resigns, the office is still obligated to giving you a response to your records request.
That's
the individual holding the seat in that office doesn't stop the office's responsibilities. So you still have to get that records
Oh,
request.
I'll eventually get them. But you see, that I didn't stop there. I then went back and looked to see how many years John Scott has been being appointed by the governor to various, ever since Abbott was elected governor. And I requested all of John Scott's oaths for all of those appointments back. And you know what's going to happen.
All right, so
they're not going to be there.
Let me ask this in furthering my initial line of questioning. After he resigns and you get this information confirming that, hey, we lied to Fisher. Big whoop, it's just Fisher. But because it was a records request, and on the Secretary of State's letterhead, they gave you some falsified information. Even after he resigns, can action be taken against him?
Oh my God, yeah. He'll still be charged with felonies because this is the 6th time he's done this to me this year.
So what would be the difference with him being in the position and him resigning from the position?
Well, if you read the article, John Scott said he's going to return to his private law practice. Well, you got to have a law license. And if you get convicted of a felony for tampering with government records, guess what happens to your law license?
So, okay. He still has to be convicted first. In fact, you have to get the record, the response to your records request. Then you're gonna have to file that felony charge. Then he's gonna have to be convicted of that felony charge.
Actually, it gets a lot uglier before it gets there. Because now, with the article in the Fort Worth Weekly tagging the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court being involved in this scam with administrative judges in Fort Worth and now the one in San Antonio, and using these administrative judges to deprive defendants of their 14th Amendment due process rights to an honest judiciary in Texas. And it doesn't stop there. It's far worse. And you see, I've sent out emails to various news agencies in Texas, the large news departments that are picking up on this John Scott.
Yes.
The truth of the matter, the records, which I have, which tell a very different story of what happened to John Scott, plus the legislative committees have been aware of John Scott's tampering with the records for the last 2 months. And they're preparing to start holding committee meetings about the corruption of John Scott as Secretary of State. This is why he resigned before January 1st when the legislature comes back into session, because he has to get confirmed for Abbott's appointment in October of last year, because the legislature has been out of session since May of 2021. And all governor appointees have to be confirmed by the Senate. And John Scott has realized he hasn't got a prayer. And I suspect some of the Republicans on these committees I've talked to have talked to the governor's office and John Scott and told him what's coming. And so that's why I've been telling people for the last month that Scott will resign before the end of this year, because I already have the records. And I already knew that as soon as I filed my public records request for John Scott's oaths going back to 2014, he's out the door. And then with what he did in this state bar case, standing me off, knowing that this judge didn't have any oaths, and standing me off for 2 months, and then me filing the records request for the response he gave a reporter.
Yes.
Then he knows that I have what it takes to charge him with multiple felonies.
Now, there's some people that would be wondering, all right, so we've addressed a few cases as we have been communicating since November of 2019. And right here on this broadcast, we've gone through the Rodney Reed case extensively from various angles. We've had, I've had family members of the victim, being Stacey Stites' cousin Heather Campbell Stubbs. I've had Joy Munford, who was the best friend of the 12-year-old girl that they claimed that Rodney had raped. And people are still saying that he raped her, even today. And, that's fine. Go ahead and say what you will. There is a regular listener who is on YouTube Live right now that had asked about some other cases that we've touched on.
Darlie Routier.
Darlie and Melissa Lucio.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
the last, before you comment, the last question that the listener had asked was, how would you get this information about the Innocence Project attorneys to Rodney himself? And I am kind of, I think he already knows.
Okay, yeah, he probably already knows, but there's nothing he can do. Because if he questions the Innocence Project, you know what Barry Sheck will do? Say, okay, if you don't want to follow our instructions, we'll just resign and you find a new attorney. Because that's what Bryce Benjett told him. He told him if he challenged Bryce, that Bryce would drop him and play hell finding another attorney who would represent him, that he ended up getting executed. That's the way they play the game. So Rodney can't do anything. But you see, here's the deal. I do an extraordinary amount of research, 20 years of it.
Yeah.
And the state knows that I understand what I read, and I extrapolate out the records and look at the Supreme Court rulings and put together a monster database. And then I act like a Venus flytrap. I wait for the state to step in and trigger the trap, and it slams shut. And then all of my documented research all comes to bear. Well, it takes a very specific set of circumstances. So I do research in cases all over the state, setting these traps, waiting for the state to step in it, in the exact right trap at the right time that will set off a chain reaction, and this is it. Because here's the deal. The Court of Criminal Appeals is still reviewing the evidentiary hearing from August of 2021, where J.D. Langley was illegally on the bench. They haven't ruled on that hearing where Rodney was asking for a new trial. Now that J.D. Langley could be facing a murder charge for executing Larry Swearingen deliberately without authority, it's a murder charge. And the civil Supreme Court, Nathan Heck, is aware that this charge is floating. They're trying to figure out how to get rid of it. There is no way to get rid of it. And now that John Scott has got caught tampering with the oaths in these murder cases, and these judges statewide for more than a year, and now it's already affecting the murder case that's going on live on court TV, and the judge who's illegally on the bench, and the medical examiner who's a judge who is a non-citizen, who's already under criminal investigation by the FBI, but not just the FBI. Immigration has a criminal charge and investigation against the same guy run out of Dallas. I know, because they told me. And so all of these things are coming to a head. Now, what the hell do you think the Court of Criminal Appeals is going to do? J.D. Langley was illegally on the bench. The attorneys for Rodney were being blackmailed to keep them from raising the issue. Kept them from raising the issue in Larry Swearingen, which got him executed. And then the corrupt judges then, to show how powerful they are, and a shot at me, and I know it was a shot at me, they assigned Langley to Rodney's case, the case that got me started on this. Well, that's a bad message to send to me because I'm the guy that has the records that can strike back. And so now all of this has come to a head. There are numerous large news organizations that are beginning to wake up to the corruption in Texas. And so what do you think the chances are that the Court of Criminal Appeals is about to rule before the end of this year, granting Rodney a new trial? I'd say it's about 80%.
I guess those chances just went up, especially since there was this another article, courtesy of the Fort Worth Weekly. This one, the 30th of November. And people can go and look these up, and I'll go ahead and put this one up on the screen real quick too, so that people can see the date and know that I'm not making it up. Here you go. It's titled Judicial Senioritis. I like that too.
That shows a little touch of humor too.
Yeah, that sounds like something they got from you, Fish. But
I don't know about that. Reporters from publications like that generally have a sense of humor.
Yeah, apparently.
And a strong sense of justice.
And so this was one of them in the series where they talk about the things happening in the Texas judiciary. And the subcaption here is a slew of new findings into Texas system of visiting retired judges reveal the rot may start from the top. And if nothing sparks your interest, then that definitely should.
Right, because the top they're talking about is Chief Justice Nathan Hecht.
And that's in the first sentence. Tarrant County's systemic issues related to fraudulent assignments of visiting retired judges may be condoned by Chief Justice Nathan Hecht, courtesy Supreme Court of Texas. And that being an opening sentence in an article is crazy enough. Lots of local judges here may here and maybe across the state have been, well, crapping their black robes. That's not what they said, and you can read that. Since April, that's when we started looking into double dipping on the taxpayer's dime. Here's how it works. When judges retire, they can still preside over casing as visiting judges, things that we've talked about. And here it is. They are reporting on it now in this article. So you and I have spoken about this and have been talking about this as we have addressed the Rodney Reed case. And one of the smoking guns in the Rodney Reed conviction is the judge. Crazy enough. You'd think that the argument being presented. Now, I don't know who Kim K is. Kim K is apparently a podcaster. Yeah, I don't know. Comment here.
Right, yeah. He is a prominent podcaster, political podcaster that deals with the commissioners' courts and the city council members in Tarrant County. And he holds guest, candidates running for election. So he...
Oh, Kim Kardashian. She's talking about Kim Kardashian.
No, Kincaid is a...
No, not Kincaid. Kim K. So she's saying... Shouldn't basically saying that shouldn't Kim Kardashian be told of this information since she now has a podcast now addressing some of these things and...
right, she's a supporter of Rodney Reed getting a new trial too.
Right. So she's saying, couldn't Rodney's family get this information to Kim for her to put it out there? Well, in the very same way, we've been putting it out there forever, so people can just share it out.
Well, see, Kim Kardashian believes in the Innocence Project. I mean, they've created such goodwill, even though they're Satan's workshop.
Oh Lord.
You know, and see, that's what happens. It's the Wizard of Oz all over again.
So what does that
You
say
know,
for
you don't look at the guy, the real person behind the curtain. Focus on the big omnipotent Oz, or the big omnipotent, Innocence Project in Barry Scheck. If you look behind the curtain, you see a bunch of corrupt attorneys that are using these cases to build their facade of the Cordova Law School and Innocence Project and protecting the rights of defendants when they get their clients executed or drugged through the court for decades, when they could have gotten them out in a matter of months.
Okay. So if that is the case, then should Darley and Lucio, Melissa, feel secure in the fact that the Innocence Project have taken on their cases also?
Well, yes. You see, something changed big in Texas in January. I mentioned a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That special court of review set up by Nathan Heck issued a ruling, because this was a political county judge that is now a member of the Senate.
Yes.
Who's also my representative in the Texas Senate, though she'll never answer one of my phone calls. So this was basically a political review, but the special court of review went straight down the law, the Constitution, the statutes. But they didn't see the ramifications of what they ruled. But the Commission on Judicial Conduct recognized it, and so in March, the General Counsel of the Commission on Judicial Conduct, or their attorney, called me and wanted to draw my attention to this January 11th ruling. And this ruling makes it carte blanche that medical examiners are judges, that now the Commission on Judicial Conduct is recognizing they're judges, and as judges, they have to be U.S. citizens and they have to take the oaths.
Mm-hmm.
And then the General Counsel, because it was the Commission on Judicial Conduct who had them call me. The Commission wants me to file a complaint against the medical examiner's office so they can openly rule that medical examiners are judges, they have to take the oath of office, they have to be citizens, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I deal with the Commission on Judicial Conduct. It's one of the most corrupt state agencies there are. And I would never file a complaint with them until I had the hammer of the media hard behind me. It's like, the media acts like a blinders on an ass. You can't get an ass to do anything without the blinders on him.
Mm.
And normally I would say donkey, but
yeah,
in this case I wanted to emphasize
that
word.
Understood.
And so I'm not, now there are two medical examiners' offices that are involved in really high-profile cases that the whole nation is covering.
Right.
And that is the Robb Elementary shooting in Uvalde, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
All the autopsies on all the decedents and the school teachers are all void and illegal.
Because of the medical examiner.
Because the medical examiner in San Antonio refuses to take the oath, even though San Antonio acknowledged she's a judge. And Norma Farley, does that name ring a bell?
Yep.
Rodney Reed case, Lucio case. Well, she's the deputy chief medical examiner of Bexar County, except, wait, there is no office because the chief hasn't taken the oath. And without the oath, the office doesn't exist, and none of the deputies have a legal standing or titles. You see the problem? Now, it just came out that all of the key senators in the state that have been raising issues about the Robb Elementary school shooting,
yes,
they have a non-disclosure agreement with the Texas Rangers.
Hmm?
Which makes, as raised issues because I've been in contact with those offices, and none of the senators will return the call because they all know all this. The director of the DPS has met with them and said, "Okay, look, sign the non-disclosure, and we'll open the book. What Fisher's talking about." And so now they got non-disclosures. Well, do you see how corrupt that is? How in God's name can a state law enforcement agency corrupt the legislature? Because, oh, wait a minute, we have a separation of powers constitution? The legislature is part of the legislative division. The Texas Rangers and the director of the DPS are part of the executive branch of government. The executive branch of government can't blackmail the legislature to withhold evidence from them until they sign a non-disclosure and waive their constitutional oversight of power. You see what a mess this is?
So,
and see, this has just been recorded.
It comes back to the whys, though. Why?
Because Texas does everything big, including corruption.
Jeez.
And hypocrisy. Boy. If we do everything bigger than anybody else, well, God, we got to do hypocrisy better than everybody else. We got to do corruption better than anybody else. I mean, just extrapolate. If you do everything better, well, you only think of the good things. But it includes the bad things, too. That's the reason the Texas Ranger with Tonto was dressed all in white except for that black mask. He said, I represent, the law with a little bit of corruption. That was, in the 1800s. If the Texas Rangers still dressed in style with the original Ranger, it would be the other way around. They would dress fully in black with just a little white mask for a little honesty and integrity, but the rest of it is pure, unadulterated corruption.
That's very sad. I'm here chuckling at your analogy, but that's very sad.
Yeah, you made it colorful, but it is dead on true.
Because, Texas is by no means a small state. And
it's bigger than Ukraine.
Yeah. But, so that says, with a lot of ground to cover and a lot of people living in the state, there are a lot of cases to be addressed. And you have gone back 2 decades looking at cases and judges, medical examiners. You've already removed, a dozen medical examiners?
Yeah, about 10, working on another 4 for this year. And time and time again, you're coming across the very same things with the judges, the medical examiners' offices, the law offices, because Texas Rangers, they're not exempt from anything here. We see the corruption there. We see the corruption at local police departments, Bastrop, not calling any police departments out, but, the case that got us started. We time and time again, over and over again. And the question remains, how do you clean this up? Well, this is some of the criticism I get from some of your nay-nays is, well, Fisher, you've been doing this for 20 years. You haven't got anything to show for it. Oh, you're wrong. You're very wrong. I have a database. You see, that's the difference. When I started this, I was like any other Texan. I trusted. I trusted the Texas Rangers. I trusted the judges. I trusted law enforcement. And I thought, okay, all you got to do is show that, somebody is lying here, and the system is set up to catch that person and correct it. When just the opposite is true. So, I start looking at the medical examiners first. when I look at the Reed case. That was my first focus. And then I'm also starting to look at some of the law enforcement, especially the Texas Ranger involved. And then over the years, I start seeing other cases with Texas Rangers, so I pull their records and I say, okay, just like I did with Bayardo's, the medical examiner, I start to look at more and more medical examiners, and I say, oh, this is not, endemic to Austin. It's systemic through the state. The medical examiners through the state are all corrupt. And then you're seeing the same thing about the Texas Rangers. And so as time goes on, I start getting into the judiciary, the judges, and I start seeing, oh, crap. The judges are just as bad as the medical examiner and the Texas Rangers. And so as I'm doing this, I'm starting to put together a cross-reference database. And so now, 20 years later, I have the database to be able to take out the Secretary of State, to be able to also tap on the door to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who this year will also resign or be removed. And you start seeing now the dominoes falling, and all of the cases, the big cases that are going on in the state, are now also implicated, as you saw in the September article in the Fort Worth Weekly. It mentions Judge Gallagher as being involved in appointing this fake judge to his court benches for 7 years. Mm-hmm. And Judge Gallagher is the one who's presiding over the Jefferson trial right now.
Right now, yes.
And he's illegally on the bench. And the legislature knows this. I talked to them today about it. They're watching the Jefferson trial. And now they've been made aware that the judge is the judge mentioned in this article. See, the legislature has that September 30th article about Nathan Heck and the double dipping of the judges. Now, so I can digress a little bit. Let me explain the Texas law on retired judges and what this double dipping is about. Texas, changed the name of the original government code back in '85. Prior to '85, our government code was known as the Vernon Civil Statutes for retired and visiting judges. Mm-hmm. Now it's the Texas Government Code, chapters 74 and 75. Well, under the Vernon's statutes, it states that when a judge retires, they are no longer a judge. And they don't have to file, financial liability forms every year with the state, as all elected and appointed officers have to do. Mm-hmm. And they only, a judge, once they retired, only can become a judge again is by serving notice on the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court within 90 days of their retirement of their election to continue to serve as a visiting judge. And the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court has to accept them. Once that happens, they are now judges again and are eligible to be assigned to a bench. After 90 days, the retired judge has to get the approval of the full Texas Supreme Court to become a judge eligible for an appointment. Now, under the next section on retired judges, it states that a judge who becomes eligible for an appointment, upon the appointment to the bench, upon taking the oath of office, they are entitled to the daily pay of the judge they're replacing in lieu of their retirement payments. And so when a judge is assigned to a bench, upon taking the oath for that assignment, order of assignment,
yes,
they have to notify the retirement board that they're sitting on the bench being paid by the state, so the retirement board can stop their retirement annuity payments. You don't get both, i.e. double dip. So the judges came up with a workaround. Since the government code says upon taking the oath for that appointment to the bench, you have to notify the retirement board. So they don't take the oath, so they don't have to notify the retirement board, and they collect both payments simultaneously. That's Texas. And that's what they've been doing for more than 22 years.
And so now you have what? Both retired and non-retired judges not taking the oath?
Okay. Judges who are not retired, that haven't been given approval by the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court or the full Supreme Court, they're not judges. They're just retired, government. When you use the word retired judge, and see, that's how Texas confuses everything. They twist the words.
As they do with senior judge?
Right. Senior judge, that word senior means that you're a retired judge who's been approved by either the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court or the full Supreme Court to become a judge again, eligible for an assignment. It doesn't make a difference if you're any level above a constitutional judge. And the constitutional judges are Justice of the Peace and the Commissioner's Court judges. They are not eligible to become senior judges because they're under the constitutional court system, not the statutory court system set up by the legislature, or by that are appellate or above judges. They're so minor of a judge that they're covered by appointments under the government code. So anything above a county judge and a JP, they have to. If you're a county court at law judge, you have to become approved by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and that's the problem with that judge that the Fort Worth Weekly started writing the stories about back in April, Darrell Coffey. He was a county court at law judge, a statutory judge, who can come, after retirement, can serve a letter on the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court of his willingness to serve on assignment.
Yes.
And the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court or the full Supreme Court has to accept that offer. And when they do, then even though he's a county judge, he's also a senior judge. Well, this is what that article in September is about. Nathan Heck tried to lie to the Fort Worth Weekly saying, oh, no, senior judges are district court judges and above. No, it's not. Under the government code, under the original government code, it's any judge above the JP or the county court at law judge who wants to become a judge again has to get approval by the Supreme Court. And you see this Judge Darrell Coffey in his file submitted a fake letter that he allegedly wrote to the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court to become a senior judge, except Nathan Heck says that's a lie. He never submitted any such letter. That's
But Darrell Coffey is the same judge that presided over the Marine shooting
case. Oh, I'm sorry. The Smith case.
Oh shoot, what is his name again? And the ex-Marine shot him in the alley behind a store.
No. That's a different judge.
Darrell Coffey he
was appointed to a sex offender case.
You see, I'm mixing up my Texas judges too. But that's okay. I don't live in Texas.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of them. Darrell Coffey wasn't involved in the Mineola, Texas shooting.
Okay.
In Gifford. He wasn't assigned to that case. But that one's just as bad. It's a visiting judge that never took his oaths. And they appointed the Attorney General, Prosecutor Pro Tem, that the Supreme Court has been ruling for 100 years is unconstitutional, and yet they're still doing it. And that's part of this that's coming out now with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and John Scott. Because you see, an attorney, a district attorney pro tem, is a full appointed officer who has to take the oath of office and file it with the Secretary of State. Well, the Secretary of State, I've been pulling them. I've pulled over 60 so far since January that are unconstitutional. And the assistant attorney generals are only filing the anti-bribery statement with the Secretary of State.
Right.
Because the Supreme Court of Texas has ruled that the county and district attorneys are part of the judicial branch of government, and the attorney general is the executive branch. Ergo, the attorney general's office cannot act as a district attorney or county attorney pro tem. It's unconstitutional. And yet,
there they are.
There they are. And they hit that case hard in December 2021. In January 2022, Paxton's appointing his deputy attorney generals as criminal district attorneys pro tem.
Fish, hold on. Let me say
Sure.
thank you to my affiliates. It's that time where we would normally wrap up. We're getting in final statements, and I know we won't be able to get it all in before you guys go. Thank you to my affiliates. Truly appreciate, love you. And we'll be back tomorrow with Healthy Love right here on the Night Shift to DJ Kevin Stew at 10 p.m. Eastern. We're just going to go over a little bit beyond midnight, but thank you all for your support. Take care of yourselves. Much love to you. Go ahead, Fish.
So just to kind of bring this around.
Yes.
The articles that have been done on John Scott covering his resignation that came out just before lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the big articles are yet to come about his tampering with oaths, his involvement in the lawsuit to overturn the elections representing Trump, hiding the fact that the judge who dismissed that state bar lawsuit, was illegally on the bench. And John Scott was hiding that for 2 months, trying to maneuver. I don't know what they were doing. They were maneuvering, trying to get me to believe that judges don't take the oath and the state bar doesn't have to appeal. Which, I've been dealing with the state bar on this since it happened. A lot. Hours on the phone.
Yes.
And so 2 weeks ago, after that phone conversation for 2 hours, the state bar filed their note, started working on their appeal of the judge who dismissed that lawsuit. So that's coming back. And as soon as that gets published, then all of this stuff with John Scott is going to come out again, and how John Scott tried to maneuver and hide the fact that a Republican administrative judge appointed a ringer judge to dismiss that lawsuit against the Attorney General. Now, this is going to tie in connection of the Court of Criminal Appeals ruling last December that dismissed the Attorney General's criminal charges against the Jefferson County Sheriff for a felony election code violation. That the Supreme Court ruled in December that the Attorney General had no authority to bring that criminal charge. And this is in Southeast Texas, and it's a Democratic, Black African-American sheriff that they went after.
Yes.
Unconstitutionally. Well, as this stuff starts unfolding, then it starts dragging up these, the Attorney General involved in other things. And of course, when the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals ruled that Paxton, our Attorney General, had no prosecuting power, civil or criminal, in this state, then Paxton, Republican, Lieutenant Governor Dan Pastrick, Republican, Governor Greg Abbott, Republican, then leaned on the Court of Criminal Appeals to change their ruling. But you see, this ruling in the Zena Stevens case, the Beaumont sheriff, was just one of 30 or more rulings by the Supreme Court that go back to 1882 that the Attorney General has no prosecuting power in this state, criminal or civil. So it shows the political push to try to get the Republican Court of Criminal Appeals to change and to issue a different ruling in violation of the Constitution. That's where this is going. And they made it very public when the three senior members of the executive branch of government, governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, openly, publicly called for the Republican, Supreme Court, criminal Supreme Court, to change their ruling to unconstitutionally allow the Attorney General to do what the Constitution forbids him to do, prosecute criminal cases. And see, so under the ruling, and of course, here just last month, the Court of Criminal Appeals responded, said no. Their ruling was dead on. Go suck an egg, in essence, is what the Republican judges told the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general.
All right.
And remember, this is the same Republican Court of Criminal Appeals that's presiding over Rodney's case, where a judge with no authority on the bench, you're beginning to see a Republican Supreme Court going, okay, Governor Abbott, you and your corrupt buddies have gone a little too far, and we're so far out on that limb that the Supreme Court of the United States could come in and bitch slap us. Pardon my French. Because that's how close they are to that happening.
Quick question. Have you filed on Bryce Benjet yet? Question in the coming to you from one of the listeners. And if not, why? Addition to the question from me.
Yeah, I haven't, and there's a reason why. And it's a reason I've told you. Who is the chief member of the state bar?
The Chief Justice
Nathan Heck. Exactly. What chance do you think the state bar is a political investigative organization that's controlled by the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court? Now, guess who appoints a member of the Commission on Judicial Conduct? Well, that would be Nathan Heck.
Same Chief Justice.
And of course, the majority of the members, a good part of the members on the Commission on Judicial Conduct are judges appointed by the governor and the lieutenant governor. So that's why I won't file a complaint again with the Commission on Judicial Conduct until I have a solid wall of news media that are covering the issue. And only then will the Commission on Judicial Conduct issue a ruling of any semblance, of what our statutes and Constitution require.
Right, because then they're under the spotlight.
That's right, and they can be exposed easily enough. And you see, this special court of review I keep talking about?
Yes.
Well, in that special court of review, they address the Commission on Judicial Conduct, and they point out that it is under the Constitution, they are a proactive investigating body, meaning that they were never intended to sit there and wait for a complaint from a citizen. Their duty is to actively monitor all the judges in the state like I do, except they don't do that. They simply wait for a complaint unless a political judge who's bucking the system, then they go after those judges and they flat remove them. And then they also take away all of their retirement pay to make sure they don't have the money to fight them for the rest of their lives. This is what Texas does. Texas is not more than a hop, skip, and a jump away from the same legal system in Iran, China, or Russia. It is that close.
Wow.
Except you don't have a 4-foot-tall Putin running, the system. It's the judges running the other branches of government.
Right.
So, and remember, our governor, Greg Abbott, is an attorney, member of the state bar, who's part of what? The judicial branch.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the chief elected officer of the executive branch. So the state bar, and Nathan Heck, can cause our governor a lot of grief.
Only if.
Yeah, right.
Only if.
So yeah, this is absolutely a rat's nest.
Well,
and that's Texas.
Here, right now is where we are. Other than us presenting this information, you have newspapers who are picking up on it and presenting on it more often. So much so, you have a whole series out of the Fort Worth Weekly. So anyone that is listening, whether they're listening live or they're checking out the podcast or the YouTube, whichever way they're locked on and locked in, you can also check to see what it is that we're talking about here, if it's showing up on any other media, any other news platform.
And your listeners who do social media,
mm-hmm.
since this involves 2 live trials covered by Court TV.
Yes.
And Court TV does, social media.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the best way to get this information in front of Court TV that the judge is illegally on the bench in the Jefferson case and the medical examiner committed perjury on her credentialing in the Border Patrol murder trial in San Antonio, is through social media. Well, this boy doesn't do social media.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as Court TV, I watch because it's a research tool.
Right.
So when I saw that they were covering live the Border Patrol agent, I just watched for when the medical examiner was going to come and testify, because I know the murders were done in Webb County or Laredo. And sure enough, when she took the stand, I stopped doing what I'm doing, turned on the volume, and listened to her credentialing. And boy, when you play it, if you know anything about, residencies and pathology fellowships and forensic pathology and medical examiners, she was all over the place. Trying to infer something without actually saying it. You see, she never said that she took a fellowship in forensic pathology anywhere. She said that she took a fellowship in forensic medicine with the military. But forensic medicine has nothing to do with forensic pathology or being a medical examiner.
Things that we would quickly miss.
Yeah, it's the nuance in the thing. Just like Bayardo, when he testified in the Rodney Reed trial back in '98, testified that he was the former deputy chief medical examiner in Houston, which was untrue, and that he does the inquest for Bastrop County, which is absolutely untrue. And that constituted because he did not tell them that he did the autopsy as a private contract vendor for $300, not as a Travis County medical examiner, not as a forensic pathologist, but as a private physician under contract.
Yes.
Under a quiet contract with Travis County, so that Bastrop County did not know that he did not do the autopsy as the Travis County medical examiner. See, these are big deals. They are criminal, so criminal, that they alone would overturn the conviction if the defense raised them, even to this day. But you see, that goes back to the issue of being a court-appointed firm like the Innocence Project, who gains all of the accolades of this giant, organization on the level with God's angels in protecting the rights of defendants, when it's the furthest thing from the truth. Very sex operation is akin to the Antichrist. To pretend to be an arm of God when they're not. And of course, that's what the Bible warns you, that the devil will impersonate.
Yes.
A priest to win his battle. And that's exactly what the Innocence Project does. And I'm not, I'm being colorful, but even, how colorful I frame it, it is not but a millimeter away from the truth. And that's the problem. I mean, look what happened to Larry Swearingen. He got executed. Why? Because the Innocence Project, were tired of representing him. And the courts were trying to move him on. So they tried to get rid of the two biggest problems in the state. And they tried to do the same thing with Lucio. They were going to let her get executed.
Well, at least they're trying to.
Well, now they've got a problem because John Scott tampered with the oaths on the judge down there that held a recusal motion, and now the media knows this, just like they tampered with Sid Arl being assigned to tamper with the judge in the Walmart shooting and the DA's recusal. Now, just to let your listeners, honest reporting, in that recusal motion of the district attorney in El Paso, I was providing documents and explanations to the district attorney.
Yes.
She had her deputies call me the Wednesday before Thanksgiving on a conference call for a couple of hours, wanting to know everything that was going on and how corrupt that petition was for her removal. Had the same request from the county attorney who's prosecuting the writ of petition, again, wanting to know all the particulars.
Right.
And I had a 2-hour conversation with the attorney who filed the writ of petition to remove the DA, who was told and taken to the government code and shown that he filed a false petition illegally. And I advised him to pull the petition back, redraft it under the statute, and reserve it before the visiting judge assigned it. Well, he didn't. He let the visiting judge assign a void order, a void petition for her removal, knowing it was void, and then 2 weeks ago, today, the county attorney and the attorney amended the petition knowing it was void and refiled it, which now makes them candidates for charges of perjury and filing false records with the courts. And then, of course, the visiting judge didn't take the oaths, is presiding over cases simultaneously in 2 administrative regions, the 6th and the 7th, which is unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional, yes. We addressed that too.
Yeah, which voids both appointments. He cannot be paid, and he cannot take the bench in either one of those cases, or any case now. He's now ineligible to serve on any court in the state until he takes the oath for that appointment to El Paso. And when he does, everything else he's done goes to hell in a handbasket. See the mess? And see, this is what Greg Abbott just walked into, that I was warning him to stay out of, because this case has more minds in it than Ukraine does right now. And nothing the governor can do, any action he takes, he's going to step on a mine. And it's going to come back and bite him on the butt.
Well, here's what we can do. We can pay attention to what is happening in Texas and see where it's going to take us.
Sure, because, this is what we've been building to, is eventually, and I've told you repeatedly, eventually the state is going to step on one that I can hit them with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And John Scott is that one. And everything John Scott has done for the last year
mm-hmm.
it covers everything the Fort Worth Weekly has talked about.
Yes.
John Scott has been involved in that all the way around, including Sid Harrell. In the article they did last week,
mm-hmm.
it's Nathan Heck and Sid Harrell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John Scott falsified the oaths for Sid Harrell. That cover, from 2017 to current. And then when another news organization looked into Sid Harrell, they got different oaths than I did. But the oaths they got showed that the oaths for both appointments by Abbott were defective, which means Sid Harrell has had no authority to assign judges to any court or himself, regardless of the prohibitions on administrative judges taking the bench. He's never been an administrative judge since 2017. So all of his assignments to all of the courts everywhere in the state are all dead and void.
Which also speaks to whatever those judges have touched.
Oh, yeah. Because he didn't have any oaths, all of the defendants who suffered, their due process rights can sue Sid Harrell, and he has no immunity of any kind.
Well, who's going to take up their cases? Who's going to take up? It has to be someone outside of Texas
to
take up their case.
The whole system has to start. See, if Nathan Heck gets hit, then all of a sudden attorneys realize, oh crap, the Wicked Witch is dead. Nobody can come after us if we buck the system. You see what happens?
No, you get a fair system.
If you take out the slave owner, you don't have slaves anymore. You got free men.
You get a fair system to operate in.
And that's what is on the preface of happening.
But it doesn't address what has happened for the last 20 years.
Texas is going to, as this thing begins to unfold, and the corrupt system starts falling apart, then you're going to see attorneys come out of the woodwork, because it's going to be like the tobacco settlement all over again. There are going to be billions and billions of dollars in play in compensation.
Yeah.
And of course, once the national media and the federal courts get involved, then this is something that it took more than 20 years to get into. It'll take more than 20 years to work it out of it, because, you have people who are executed, who are innocent, who are framed by these fake medical examiners and these court-appointed attorneys and this judiciary for more than 20 years.
But even so, even if they weren't, still due process wasn't given.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, the inmates are deceased, but you see the families, the estate, still has the power.
Right.
And so this thing, and see, the legislature, I've been keeping them apprised. They're seeing the magnitude of this. And the last thing they want to be is on the wrong side of this thing when the feds come rolling in. So you're beginning, and see, that's what I'm pretty sure happened. That's why I was able to tell the media in advance that John Scott last week that he was going to resign, and definitely before Christmas, because I'd already set the foundation. and had delivered that information to various senators and committees. And of course, when they saw the records, there's no doubt that they talked to the governor, and the governor called in Scott, and he needs Scott gone. But see, there's no easy way for John Scott to get out of the Secretary of State's office. It's like watching Laurel and Hardy try to go through their first revolving door.
Keep going around in circles.
It's easy to get in, but they can't get out.
Yeah.
And that's the same revolving door that John Scott has just stepped into. It's not, I mean, he may get out, but he's not out.
Yeah.
Because all of this stuff is going to haunt him. And of course, as this stuff unfolds, exactly what law practice is he going to be able to set up, even while he still has a law license, that anybody would want to be associated with him?
Well, as long as the information gets out, then, it'll be a failing business. But yet, again...
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be the loneliest law office in the state.
Well, it is a Lone Star State, so it's befitting.
A lonely star state, yes. If you get wrong side of anything, it gets real lonely. You don't have a lot of friends.
Right.
You don't get a lot of Christmas cards from the powers to be. Trust me, I know.
Like you.
I'm telling you, if I got a package from the state, my first call would be to the bomb squad. I'm not touching it. That's just straight out. This boy did not fall off the turnip truck.
That's right.
So anyway, this stuff is, and see, I didn't see the U.S. News report on John Scott.
Yeah.
So already they have picked up on John Scott, but see, they don't have his filing that he signed as Trump's attorney in the lawsuit in Pennsylvania. I do.
Have you given that to any news agencies yet?
Yeah, today. Gave it to several.
Okay.
And pointing out that John Scott did the same thing that the first Assistant Attorney General Brent Webster did, that got the state bar to file suit against him. And then it was John Scott that tried to hide the fact that the judge who dismissed the case was illegally on the bench, because, see, John Scott had a vested interest in getting that case killed. So now all of that's come back to bite him.
As well as it should.
As it should. And I suspect this week there will be an article that will go into great detail on all of this.
We'll keep our eyes open.
And the oaths issue on the judge, yes, because and another big case involving Sid Harrell, a big case, and the big reporter with one of the state's biggest newspapers.
Yes.
I alerted the reporter last week, you need to start working this story, because come next week it's going to blow up. And see, now it's blown up with the Fort Worth Weekly story and John Scott's resignation, and John Scott was the one who was tampering with the oaths of the judges in this story they're working that involved Sid Harrell. And that story goes right at Governor Abbott.
Quick question to wrap this all up. I said it just a few moments ago. Well, I alluded to it just a few moments ago. And you've been mentioning it. For those that go back to wondering, why are we moving away from where we originally started looking at individual cases? Well, not even a question, a statement, quick statement. For those that are wondering why we've moved away from doing deep dives in individual cases, because looking into those individual cases led us down this path.
Yeah, you can't solve any of the underlying cases because it's like a pyramid. All of the cases we're talking about is the base, but they all culminate in the top with a few state officials, judges, Supreme Court judges, Attorney General, Governor and Lieutenant Governor. So you can talk about and chip around at the base all you want, but every day new cases are coming in to expand the base. But the top of the pyramid remains the same. So you turn the pyramid upside down, take out the top, and see what happens. You knock out, if the pyramid stood on its tip, and you take out the tip, like the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court, and the Secretary of State, who does the oaths, and then the cracks go all the way up and expand as they go out, and then they get the thousands of individual cases that we were taking one at a time.
Yes.
If you're gonna put an end to this, you got to. It's like a snake. We've been dealing with the rattles that make all the noise on the end. Rodney Reed,
Lucio,
Gutiérrez, Melissa Lucio, but it's the head of the snake that is the problem. And as long as the head continues to feed, you get more rattles and a longer snake.
Yeah.
So, when you kill a snake, you cut off its head.
Exactly.
Then you take the rattlers and you
make music.
rattle them loud and make, and dance and sing.
Yeah.
Get it like
music.
Basically
was it a mariachi band?
Yeah, I lost the term for that, for the rattle, So that's basically what we're doing. Is it's taken me 20 years to work up that snake to realize and put together enough of a database to be able to go after the top. And so that's what I've been doing for the since September, is zeroed in on John Scott and his tampering with the oaths of the judges statewide. And that moved faster and faster and faster. And then as I started closing in tight on him, I started contacting the various committees of the Texas legislature that comes back into session in January. They've been off for a year. And so they're all focused on this. And, of course, John Scott has to be approved by the Senate since he was appointed by Abbott in October. And it's already clear that the Senate is not only going to not confirm, John Scott, but they're looking at removing a bunch of the administrative judges that Abbott appointed over the last year, too.
Yeah, let's see.
And the administrative judges that aren't appointed are going to be looked at for impeachment by the Senate for appointing judges who didn't take the oath of office knowingly and that have been double-dipping the state. You see what's in play?
Yeah,
the whole system is in play.
Yeah, which is what we were talking about addressing earlier this year. Right.
Because you see, I've been working on this real hard this year, pushing it to a head.
Yes.
So, but and we've only been able to hint at it since it was in the rapid development, coming to a head stage.
Right.
And now it's here. And once you got the article about the corruption with the Chief Justice and the games he's been playing, lying to the media, lying to everybody, and the Secretary of State playing in this game and trying to manipulate, lawsuits against members of different, like Brent Webster. Well, all of a sudden now, even the reporters that have never lived in the real world are going, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's and for reporters who've never lived in the real world, they've come to a sheltered life and went to college and go to the bar, before you go to the bar, you got to go to the gym and get pretty, and then go to the bar and parade around and then get on TV and look pretty. Well, there's a lot more to reporting than looking pretty.
Yeah.
And some of these media people are beginning to go, well, if they could do that to other people, could they do that to me? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is, oh, yeah. And trust me, they will. And say you escape it, and then you get married and have a family.
They're
all of
under
your
risk.
kids, you've got
Yes.
to worry about them, because if they ever step over the line,
Yeah.
the courts are going to use them to control, if you're still in media, to control the stories. You're going to begin to understand what all of the reporters in Russia learned about Putin when he came to power. Oh, wait, they're all dead.
Mm. And on that note,
Yeah, on that
note, Fish, thank you once again, bro.
Hey, thank you, Kevin.
This has been
and
very
your
enlightening.
listeners for putting up with us and we talked about my sense of humor. Well, I think you got a little insight into it, and why you don't let me tell jokes on the air.
That's why. Yeah, right. We keep those to our phone calls.
That's right.
All right, take care, bro. Have a great night.
Thank you, sir, and you and your listeners. Thank you, and y'all have a good evening.
Yeah, we'll be following up in a few weeks with what is happening. If not in a few weeks, definitely for the new year.
Yeah, things could move very fast.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Thank you. And like I said to your listeners, those people that are socially on the media active, contact use social media to get a hold of the court TV and say, hey guys, you need to be paying attention to what's in these two cases, what's going on under the radar.
Right.
So anyway, I need to pull up. I've got Connie Starnes, her curriculum vitae. I've got to package that up and send it to the attorney for the defendant tonight. So I'll get back to work and talk to you later. Be in touch.
All right, man. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Blessings.
Remains for my race.
David Fisher, legal. He's not an attorney. He's a legal consultant, and quite the researcher, as you can tell. In the background, the sound of Nikki Blaze, track called Lost in Illusion. This is where we pack it up for the night. Thank you all. Thank you very much. As we part company, do remember to look out for members of your community. Remember, your community is not just development that you live in, but it spreads far and wide. And that's one of the reasons why I address some of the things that I address that is not in my physical community, but it's in the country that I live in. So, anything can spill over anywhere. You know what I mean? I could end up living in Texas. I know people in Texas. So I have a duty as a broadcast host. I have a responsibility to present the information. So here I am presenting the information. And as it happens, we try to present it as soon as and as legitimately as possible. Thank you all. Look out for those in your community. Remember, your community is not one that you live in, not just a geographical area, but it spreads far and wide. Do something good for someone today. You never know who's going to do something good for you. My name is Kevin Stewart, so I like to do it to you, for you, and with you every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here, kevinstew.com and affiliates. Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you, wherever you are in the world, from right here in South Florida. I bid you all a good night. Be good. If you can't be good at it. Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.